The passionate heart of the Apostle Paul beats with urgency in the letter to the Galatians. The Christians in Galatia had once embraced the gospel of grace through faith, but they were now on the verge of turning away, being enticed by false teachings that sought to tie them back to the old covenant of works. With fervor, Paul confronts this deception, challenging the Galatians to remember the foundations of their faith. We read in Galatians chapter 3, verses 2 through 3. "This only I want to learn from you. Did you receive the Spirit by the works of the law, or by the hearing of faith? Are you so foolish? Having begun in the Spirit, are you now being made perfect by the flesh?" The vibrant contrast Paul presents in verses 2 through 3 between faith and works is a profound commentary on the nature of true spirituality. This differentiation is not merely theological, but strikes at the very core of human existence and our relationship with the divine. To begin with, let's delve into what Paul means when he speaks of the works of the law. In essence, this pertains to the array of ceremonial practices, moral commandments, and rituals laid down in the Torah, which defined the covenantal relationship between God and the people of Israel. Adherence to these practices was seen as the path to righteousness, a testament to one's commitment to God. However, as the centuries rolled on, an overemphasis on these works led many to believe that strict compliance with these laws was the only way to attain favor with God. They began to see righteousness as a scale, with good works adding weight to the side of salvation. This approach gradually overshadowed the spirit of the law, reducing a living relationship with God to a mere transaction based on deeds. In stark contrast, Paul speaks of the hearing of faith. This faith isn't just cognitive agreement with certain truths, but involves a radical heart transformation. When Paul speaks of faith, he describes a profound trust in the finished work of Christ on the cross. This kind of faith recognizes our own inability to achieve righteousness on our terms and instead casts itself wholly upon God's grace. It's a relational posture, one of dependency and surrender. By comparing the two, Paul wants to bring out the insufficiency of human effort in attaining true righteousness. While the works of the law might offer a sense of moral accomplishment, they can never capture the heart, nor can they truly bridge the gap between a holy God and a fallen humanity. Only faith, which is a gift in itself, can do that. It connects us with the very life of God, sealing us with His Spirit and initiating a process of transformation from the inside out. In essence, Paul isn't negating the value of good works or righteous living. Instead, he's placing them in their rightful context. Works, when stemming from a heart of faith, are a beautiful expression of our love for God. They are the natural outflow of a life touched by grace. But when they become the foundation of our hope for salvation, they turn into heavy chains, leading us away from the liberating love of God. Thus, in this powerful dichotomy between faith and works, Paul unveils the heart of the gospel message. It's an invitation to move from self-reliance to God-reliance, from human striving to divine resting. In doing so, he calls believers everywhere to embrace the profound simplicity of faith, where true life with God begins and flourishes. Within the corridors of Paul's epistles resonates a warning, one that stems from a deep understanding of human frailty and the seductive allure of self-righteousness. His words in Galatians are no exception, as he challenges believers to recognize the perils of seeking fleshly perfection. The term flesh, as employed by Paul, encapsulates more than mere physicality. It represents the gamut of human desires, ambitions, and efforts which are inherently disconnected from God's divine influence. It's a realm where human ego reigns supreme, often masquerading as piety. When Paul speaks of those attempting to be made perfect by the flesh, he alludes to a spiritual journey marred by self-effort, devoid of true reliance on the Spirit of God. Seeking fleshly perfection is like chasing a mirage. From afar, it offers the appearance of genuine spiritual progress. Those who tread this path often find affirmation from the world and sometimes even from religious communities. There are accolades for moral achievements, praise for religious observances, and a sense of spiritual superiority that comes with strict adherence to rituals and codes. Yet, underneath this facade lies a heart untouched by the transformative power of God's grace. The danger is manifold. First, pursuing fleshly perfection leads to spiritual pride. It engenders a self-righteous spirit, a feeling of superiority over those deemed less holy. Such an attitude not only fractures community, but also blinds individuals to their own spiritual deficiencies. Secondly, this pursuit creates a false sense of security. There's an illusion that by these human endeavors, one is drawing closer to God. Yet in reality, they are erecting barriers, substituting genuine encounters with God for hollow rituals and self-imposed standards. Moreover, the journey towards fleshly perfection is exhausting. It places an unbearable yoke upon one's shoulders. Without the empowerment of the Spirit, one is constantly striving, never arriving, always fearing that they haven't done enough to please God. It's a life of perpetual uncertainty. Paul's admonishment to the Galatians is a beckoning to recognize the futility of such pursuits. God's standard is not one of fleshly perfection, but of heart transformation. This can't be achieved by human striving, but only through the indwelling of the Spirit, who alone refines, purifies, and leads us into all truth. In essence, the quest for fleshly perfection is a subtle detour away from the heart of the gospel. It shifts the focus from Christ's finished work on the cross to human achievement. Paul's impassioned plea is for believers to see this danger and to realign their spiritual compass, ensuring their journey is marked not by self-effort, but by Spirit-led transformation. The Galatian church stood at a crossroads. Would they continue to embrace the gospel of grace, or would they be ensnared by the deceptive teachings of human effort? Paul's words in Galatians chapter 3, verse 2 through 3 are a clarion call not only for them, but for all of us. They beckon us to remember how we began our journey and to recognize that any attempt to add to the work of the Spirit is an exercise in futility. Let us then, with humility and fervor, continue to rest in the grace that has been so lavishly poured upon us. In doing so, we safeguard our hearts from the pitfalls of pride and self-reliance, always remembering that our journey began and will end in the Spirit, and not by the striving of the flesh. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending your precious time with us here at Gospel Illuminations. We truly hope that the message has touched your heart and shed light on the depths of God's Word. If this has blessed you, please consider giving us a thumbs up, sharing this with your friends and loved ones, and if you haven't already, do subscribe to Gospel Illuminations. It helps us continue our mission and ensures that you stay updated with all our future content. Once again, thank you, and may the light of the gospel continue to shine brightly in your life.